everybody, welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching another video. If you are new here, my name's Heather and I primarily do vlogs and then some like advice videos like first dates. But today I thought I would do a little video about studying hacks and studying tips. I think studying is a very anxiety-ridden task at a lot of times, so I think this can be a helpful video for a lot of people who are struggling to study and study productively. My test anxiety was always at an all-time high because I was always worried about getting into university, especially in high school. I had really bad test anxiety because I feared for my life if I ever failed an exam. And that's exactly what happened. I received a 43% on my first ever midterm in university in first year biology. And then I came back with an 82 on my second midterm. And you might be like, okay, I failed my midterm too. How did you recover and recuperate from that? Well, first I spiraled and then went into like a deep depression, and then I decided to learn and reflect from my previous studying habits. I want to say studying is not an easy task, and I think it takes a lot of commitment and motivation to do it. So I'm hoping that some of these tips will help you and improve your grades over time. Everyone's studying habits differ tremendously. I don't want to guarantee that any of these tips will improve your marks. However, I think you should take everything with a grain of salt. These are just my experiences and my reflection back on when I was in my undergrad. Just a little bit about me. I went to UWO, University of Western Ontario, or Western University as they have renamed it, which was in London, Ontario, Canada, not London, UK. I wish it was, but it was not. Did my bachelor's in health science with a honor specialization in health promotion. So I was in a 4-year program from 2015 to 2019. At the time, I was hoping to go into medicine or veterinary medicine, but that just never worked out. I found myself really just enjoying like social media and whatnot. I was actually on the Dean's Honor List for all 4 years, and you might be wondering like how, if you suffered so poorly at the beginning with a 43% midterm in one of my mandatory courses. I want to say that like I never really drank coffee or relied on caffeine heavily in university because I just never liked the taste and I just didn't like the jitters. I've always been a huge fan of matcha latte, so I have been introduced to Magic Mind, which is a matcha-based beverage. So this is what it looks like. So this can be consumed as is and gives you all the nutritional facts, or you can mix it, crack it open, or you can mix it with an oat beverage. And I did this on purpose because I want to drink this right now while I talk. I really like the taste of this and I think it has a lot of flavor. This is a nootropics based drink, which means that it has cognitive enhancers such as lion's mane, cordyceps mushrooms for focus and clarity, and then also has L-theanine, which is found in green tea and matcha. Basically blocks the receptors that tell you you're tired rather than having that crash that you typically get from coffee. And then it also has adaptogens, and adaptogens help with cortisol levels. And if you aren't familiar, cortisol levels deal with your stress, so a little bit of stress reducing, calming properties. I've been really enjoying it. They are hosting a 14-day challenge, so if you want to join the challenge, you can create content, and we're kind of promoting our communities to become more productive and mindful. Basically do any changes in your life that you've been kind of pushing off. If you do create any content, please use the hashtag 14 days of magic. That way you can enter to be inputted into a giveaway, and then I will be able to select one piece of content and you will be receiving some Magic Mind merch. So very exciting. They also do have a money back guarantee for their products, so if this is something you're interested in but are unsure of, there is that guarantee. I'm gonna have the links down below in the description bar, which will include the challenge, the giveaway, and my discount code. You can use MAC14 for 20% off your purchase. Thought that it just really went well with the studying idea and the concept and just made sense because I personally was not very much into coffee specifically during my studies, but I'm gonna touch on that a little bit more as one of the tips that I do give you. I wanted to just hop on here and say thank you to Magic Mind for sponsoring this video, and I wanted to let you guys know that the last couple days taking this product, I felt very alert with no crash that I typically experience with coffee. Felt less stressed at work, and I found that my speech has actually improved. Before I used to stumble on a lot of my words, and it's gotten better. So those are just some of the effects that I've noticed. Thank you to Magic Mind for this delicious drink. Cheers! My first tip would be to study alone before you study in a group setting, because then you're able to really understand the concepts and the information, and then later on when you go and study with your peers, you're able to apply your knowledge and answer their questions. I found that whenever I studied in a group setting and I didn't study or actually know any of the content myself, it would really provoke anxiety in me because I would not understand what anyone was saying. And then I would be like, why does everyone else know this and I don't know this? Like literal panic attacks, which are rare for me because I was so stressed because everyone else knew exactly what they were doing and I had no clue. Everyone moves at their own pace and everyone studies differently. Also, when you don't have a foundational knowledge on things and you go into a study group, people may be explaining something not correctly. And if you're going off of that, then chances are you're studying the wrong thing. Stay away from study groups until you've studied independently. I do think study groups are amazing in terms of learning that knowledge and then being able to apply it to questions that people do ask. I think explaining concepts is a huge part of showing your knowledge, and that's why I think studying in groups is still beneficial, but maybe not necessarily right at the start of your studying. My second tip, no matter how fancy your calligraphy is, how expensive your highlighters are, and how many notebooks you have, it will not make your grades better. When I stuck to just basic printing double-sided on a sheet of paper and using the staple 5 color highlighters, which included like the blue, green, orange, pink, yellow, I never went out of my way to really purchase specific like bougie ass things, stationaries. It honestly was a waste of my time. I found that it almost acted like a distraction to my studying, mainly because I felt like I was procrastinating by writing out these titles very like elaborately. I don't know, I just did not find it useful. That's not to say that people who do things like that are wasting their time. I just found personally I was just focused on so many things like color coordinating and how I wrote things. Those little things just take up more of your time, and so I kind of just stayed away from that stuff because also I was broke in university. I didn't have like a lot of money, so I was not spending like $40 on a journal. I stuck to like basic printing, Times New Roman, font size 12, and yellow highlighters because that's what I found worked best. I just don't think you need anything fancy in order to be productive and study well. Third tip is repeat, repeat, repeat. Obviously and very clearly, the more you repeat something, the more memorable it becomes to you. I think they say like if you read something 7 times, that's kind of like when you memorize it. I don't know how true that statement is. Personally, I would just sit and read my notes. I would print out the notes and I would sit there and highlight key terms, highlight key concepts, and then Google. Google is your best friend. Sometimes you just don't understand what people are talking about. Your profs literally sound like they're speaking a different language, or you miss a word and you just have no clue what's going on. We are so lucky to have Google readily available to us. I probably Google a concept and click on 6 to 7 links because I want to make sure that I can gather these definitions and examples and kind of form my own in order to have the best understanding of that concept. After I was able to highlight once and write everything once, I was able to just read. So obviously the very beginning of studying, because I'm highlighting and reading and trying to actually reteach myself the ideas and the concepts, that would take a long time. But after that, once you actually truly understand, all you'd have to really do is read and get exposure to the concepts over and over again. I just thought it was like interesting because obviously everyone speaks differently and everyone has a different vocabulary. And even though your notes might be in English, you might need some form of translation into a vocabulary or wording that you understand better. People may be using very complex terms that don't necessarily need to be complex at all. I don't want academic language, I just want to understand. That jargon can just really confuse you, so that's why I always recommend just doing the translation, translating it into a way that you truly understand the concept, and then being able to apply it later on. These notes are for yourself, they're not for anyone else, so you really shouldn't have to worry about like, oh, if someone were to read this, would they understand it? No, because you're the only one reading it. Put TikTok memes and shit, like if it works. Remember Hannah Montana did her song about all the bones in the body and that worked for her. That's what you need to do. The next one I have is to use your damn calendar and actually look at your syllabus when you start a course. First lecture of a course, the professor or the lecturer will go over the syllabus and they will point out important dates. You really want to make sure that you input these dates because otherwise you have no clue when your exam is, and if 1, you don't go to class, or 2, you go to class and you don't pay attention, very likely you will miss the date or you will forget about the date and then you'll have to cram to study. Input those dates immediately because you may have conflicting schedules or you may have other tests on those days, and you want to make sure that you get ahead of it so that you're not stressed closer to. It's really not that hard. There's so many things going on, and if you think school is stressful, not to stress you out more, if you think school is stressful, work is even more stressful because you can't get extensions and you do have to work late sometimes, okay? Be grateful that you're in school right now and you can push back exams if you really, really need to. I typically allocated 1.5 weeks to study for each midterm or exam. It would depend. If they weren't doing as many sections or as many lectures in the midterm, then I might shorten or lengthen that time. This kind of leads me into the next tip, is to figure out how much time you really need to study for your exams. Everyone is gonna need a different amount of time. I've had friends where they might study 3 weeks prior to an exam if they are really struggling with the topics or the course. I have some friends who study 2 weeks before. I have some friends who study 2 days before. It really, really depends on your learning strategy. University is memorization for the most part. I'm gonna be honest here. A lot of the time, school testing is not really like, if you think that you're struggling a little bit more with the course, there's no problem with studying a little bit longer because of that. I don't think anyone else notices. I don't think anyone else cares. Don't compare yourself to others. That just leads to more stress and more anxiety. Probably my biggest tip: do not compare yourself to people, because when people ask you for your marks and they force you to tell them your marks, it leads to a lot of anxiety and competition. It's not a good environment to be studying in. I think it's very, very common for people to be curious what their peers received on exams and tests and papers. People want to know your marks. They want to know the exact number to the decimal point, okay? And I've had friends where it's like the second grades come out, it's like, what did you get? It's uploaded. What did you get? And I'm like at the gym being like, I don't fucking know. I'm literally working out right now. Just stay away from that toxic environment, because it's very easy to fall into it, especially if you are studying with people in your program. It can lead to a lot of depression and just like decreased self-worth, especially if you aren't keeping up with your peers and you are getting consistently lower grades than them and you do value yourself a lot on your grades. It hurts. I just don't think it's healthy. Focus on things outside of your academics as well. Just making time for other things. Like, your grades aren't what makes you you. The next tip I would have is to avoid relying on coffee or caffeine in order to study or stay awake. A lot of my friends did develop coffee or caffeine addictions very, very early on, becoming pretty much an excuse as to why they couldn't focus or why they couldn't study. I couldn't get my coffee, so like now I can't focus, like I need to go home. Personally, I never liked the taste of coffee. I never really like felt great when I would have it. I feel my blood pressure spike a little bit when I would have it. I also pee a lot when I have caffeine, and like that just takes away from my studying time. I would recommend something like matcha, for example. Coffee can very often make you crash after you have it. Make sure you're getting enough rest. You make sure you're sleeping and eating right. And if you are consuming like 8 cups of coffee a day in order to be able to function, that's not healthy. Please don't do that. Like, please just take care of yourself. I could never love black coffee. Like, I could never. Literally disgusting to me. I will note though that I do actually drink caffeine now, so I don't want to be a hypocrite. I do love a good latte. I don't have it right in the morning though. I allow myself a whole full morning and then I have it in the afternoon. That's how I know I'm not addicted to it, because I don't need it in order to get out of bed. Just definitely see what works best for you. My camera is gonna die. My next tip would be, if you have test anxiety, do not hesitate to ask for accommodations. Accommodations are there for you to use. Reach out to your professor and look to see if there is an accommodation. Sometimes you can get extended periods of writing time. You can even get smaller rooms where there's less people. I've personally never used it, but I do remember friends who did use accommodation. Some people think it's like cheating. I don't really think it's cheating. I think some people are at a disadvantage, especially if you are suffering from like panic attacks or anxiety while you're writing. I couldn't even begin to imagine. I used to have test anxiety, like I said, but after I failed, never felt my blood pressure spike or my heart rate really go up ever since then, because I didn't die. A lot of test anxiety revolves around you being terrified of the outcome of you failing. It really just showed me that nothing really happened. Like, I didn't experience sudden death. I came back and I learned to really like reflect on it, reviewing the exam and just really seeing like what happened. And that's the best you can really do. I don't think there's anything wrong with failing. I think failing is a large portion of our learning process and how we improve ourselves. Testing is not perfect. Please keep in mind, some people can be so smart and not test well at all. I just don't think testing really determines how intelligent we are. If you do fail a test, an exam, or a paper, like, it's not the end of the world. You are more than your marks. You are more than what a number on your screen says about you. There was no external stress on me to do well in school. Like, my parents never had an issue with my grades. I had been the only one putting pressure on myself. I do think we are our worst critic. How you see yourself is 100% worse than how others see you. Getting out of school and being able to reflect on that was like a huge thing. When you're in school, you're so deep into your marks and like how well you perform, versus like when you're out of school, like no one gives a fuck. My next tip would be, make sure you are taking breaks and making sure you are taking breaks often. We all have very short attention spans, okay? When I film these videos, it's very hard for me to it's very hard for me to focus, okay? If you've ever had a conversation with me, you will know I am everywhere but in the conversation, okay? So when I was studying, it was very hard for me to focus. So I found that The best way was to make sure that I took breaks, gave myself a mental break. I want to say for every 30 to 45 minutes that I studied, I'd give myself a 10-minute break. I could do whatever I wanted with that 10 minutes. I could go on a walk throughout the library, go buy some food, go buy a drink, go on my phone and scroll, watch a YouTube video, but essentially just picking something that I truly want to do other than studying. No one wants to do that. There's no problem with taking breaks. I think breaks are often overlooked and people think that they're for the weak, but no, really, like if you are gonna focus better after you take a break, you should do it. It's like almost like something to look forward to. I wanna reiterate, in first year, I never took breaks. I was one of those people where I'd be like studying from morning to night. Was that working for me? No. My marks weren't great, and for the amount of time I was spending on things, clearly I wasn't being productive with my time. Your brain needs a break. Just because you're studying tirelessly and endlessly doesn't mean you're gonna receive a great mark. My next tip would be turn on your do not disturb. Some of my friends would even go as far as deleting apps, deleting their profiles on social media to prevent themselves from distracting themselves. I found that as long as I had my phone on DND and had it tucked away in my backpack or somewhere where I wouldn't see it, I was fine. And then I would also quit messages on my laptop, so like no messages were coming up. Basically just no notifications at all. I found that when you are in the zone and you're really focused on something, the smallest thing that breaks your attention requires so much more time in order to get back into that focus mode. And that kind of goes back to taking breaks. When I took breaks, I knew when that break was going to come up and I knew when I'd be able to go on my phone. D&D was like a major thing that I had to practice and implement into my study routine. It takes really long to get back into that focus. That's kind of why I went back to printing my notes, because then afterwards I could quickly Google something, close my laptop, and then just continue to read my notes. And I found that was most helpful. My last and final tip: take classes you genuinely enjoy. When you're a freshman or a first year student in university or college, you will be very tempted to take bird courses. That's at least what we call them here in Canada. They are infamous courses that have been reviewed by students. That the content is very easy, exams are very easy, and this course structure is just very easy. Everything about it is easy. If you have courses that you just genuinely are interested in and they really are things that you would look at and research on your own time, I think that's a better use of your time, because then studying almost feels like fun. I know it sounds lame, but like there were courses that I took, like North American epidemics, geography, computer science, electives. A lot of my friends would not take them with me because they were not their interest and they were not bird courses. I found my highest grades were always in the courses that I selected based off of my own preference and my own interests. And I think it's something that is quite overlooked, especially in academics, which is unfortunate because I think you should really be enjoying things that you're paying for and that you're educating yourself on. Oh my god, what the hell's wrong with my shoulders? If none of your friends want to take them alone. That's what I did, and that was fine. I feel like if you like the course, it'll feel less like a chore. That is my final and last tip for my studying hacks and studying tips. There are so many reasons as to why someone won't test well even though they have the knowledge. I don't think anyone should really value themselves based off their grades. That's what I did for a really long time, and it didn't really work out for me. Also, when you do that and you graduate, like you just don't know who you are anymore because you just don't have grades. When you work, you don't get grades. There's no way to measure yourself like you do with grades when you're in school versus when you're in the real world. Take what you will with that. If you are spending too much time studying or with your nose in the books, make sure that you're getting enough exercise, make sure you're eating well, make sure you're still spending time with your friends and loved ones, and that you're not kind of isolating yourself because you feel the need to perform well on your tests and exams. All easier said than done. I think overall you should just be living a very healthy lifestyle, and I think that will in the end contribute to your marks. That is the end of the video. That is all I have for you guys. If you guys do try out any of these tips, let me know down below. If you have any study tips that you think other students would benefit from, please leave them down below in the comments, and I'm sure everyone can benefit from them. Everything about Magic Mind will be linked down below: the challenge, the giveaway, and my discount code. If you guys liked this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Love you guys, and have a great day.